Good morning. Wednesday, March 9th, 2021. We're looking at a RF28T5001SR Samsung refrigerator. And this, I fixed this. So we had a little problem here. I'm doing this in portrait mode on purpose so you can see the refrigerators kind of without seeing my whole messy kitchen. But yeah, it's a French door refrigerator with a freezer on the bottom, and it's got the controls in it's got the digital controls in here. You can see it's 34 degrees now, -8 in the freezer. The ice maker's off. Now, what happened is Monday, 2 weeks and 2 days ago, we had a power outage for about a half an hour, and the power came back on. And later that night, I opened the fridge and noticed that I could smell this piece of steak that was in there from the barbecue. And I didn't think much of it. Well, the next morning we opened the door, and it was warm in there, and this 34 said 63 degrees. So it was up like 29 degrees. So I got on and I called Samsung. We did a virtual service where you hook your phone up to the internet and you, or it's a video call. So they run you through, you do a power cycle, you power it down, you wait a minute, you power it back in. And that's to help the motherboard reset if it's get error codes or whatever. Now that's the secret. I already did a power cycle on it once. And when I called the virtual service, they had me do that again. And it didn't work. It didn't power up. It didn't start making cold. Now, at this point, I still had the freezer full, and it was cold down there, and the refrigerator was getting really warm. So we got dry ice. We tried to keep everything in the refrigerator, which isn't a good idea. Once the thing starts working, you got to get everything out of there and clean everything out there. So a couple days later, I did that. I took everything out. I powered it down. I dried it out. I put a fan in there. I cleaned everything really good. And I just left it unpowered because I figured if it's not going to work, it doesn't need to have power hooked up to it. So, and it took us a week and a half to get service on this. So after 3 days, I cleaned it out. I powered it down and I left it off. The service guy called the day he was coming and said, hey, I'm going to be there in about 40 minutes. Is it running yet? I said, no, it's unplugged. And he said, oh, well, plug it back in. I want to see what it's doing and run the codes on it when I get there. So I plugged it back in. He got there 40 minutes later, opened the door, and it was 53 degrees, or 59, I think it was. And I was like, oh my God, it's cold in here. I put my hand on the shelf. I was like, wow, it's cold. So he went through and he plugged his computer in. He did everything. We ran the power cycle, and it seemed like it was working. He put it on force frost. He did some stuff with the controls. He had his computer hooked to it. He put a probe in there to check the temperature, and it looked like it was working. So that's it. Some of my best work is by accident. I accidentally figure stuff out. But that's what it is with this refrigerator. If this thing goes off, or the power goes off and it comes back on, or you get a power surge, we thought the motherboard was fried, which is going to take forever to get. But it's not, you can't just do a short power cycle on it. You've got to do and we really don't know how long you have to shut it off to do that hard reset. I asked the service guy, I said, I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe 12 hours, maybe 24 hours. But I had it unplugged for 2 or 3, I think it was the third or fourth day. And that reset it. It took all the error codes out, all the freon and stuff in there got to equalize out in pressure. So the system started over at 0, like a brand new refrigerator. It never had power to it. See, we plugged it in, it gurgled, it made its little bit of noise, and started working. And he took it all apart, checked everything, and said the frost cycle's working. So that's how I fixed my refrigerator. Just unplugged it for 3 days, but probably 24 hours would do it. So if you get a new Samsung refrigerator and it stops working after a power shortage, get all your stuff out of there, let the whole thing warm up, dry it out, and then 24 hours later, plug it back in. But your temperature, I don't know, maybe the temperature doesn't have anything to do with it, but that's what I did. I got everything out of it, cleaned it all out, dried it, and unplugged it for 3 days. Maybe just 1 day would probably do it, but I don't know. Maybe it might take 3 days to get those codes erased from the motherboard, but long, boring video. But hey, it might save you 5 or 6 days of not having a refrigerator and having to call that service guy. And you might not need a motherboard at all. So, cut.